Ajuri, there has been questions about the legitimacy of elections in Nigeria and Nigeria's burgeoning democracy. Talk to me about the legitimacy of elections in Nigeria, especially the recent one, the presidential one, which some people are disputing.
Thank you very much, my dear friend. Let me start by saying that it is a symptom of the fact that we are a democracy in its infancy, that we have never had an election conducted in our nation in which you did not have opposition candidates suggesting or outright, expressing that the election was flawed. We have never had a situation in which frontline presidential candidates who have lost elections have come out and said, I lost this election. Some of that has to do with the fact that they're playing to their political basis. Some of that has to do with the fact that they feel that doing so would empower the incoming president, according to the election cycle in question. But what we have said, and we've been very consistent about this, is that if we do not get a grasp on the fact that democracies around the world are under attack, that there is a de-democratization effort going on across the West African sub-region. We have had 3 coups within the last 2 years. These are very alarming, scenarios that all well-meaning Democrats, all lovers of freedom of expression and all lovers of popular democracy, they should begin to speak out. And so what we're saying is that we know that here in the United States, we've seen the impact of fake news on the electoral process. We've seen the unwillingness of certain political actors to accept defeat. This was not necessarily a norm in American politics, but is now becoming a norm. We've seen this in Africa for a long time now. So what we are saying is that we want to see the international media and international election observers come in and make their assessments on the basis of evidence-backed fact. And if that's done, we can acknowledge that there may be areas where we can certainly improve. But the general notion that we are not reflecting the will of our people, when we saw the President Muhammadu Buhari lose his state in the presidential election, when we saw the incoming President-elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu lose his state, Lagos state, in the presidential election. If we were rigging elections, these instances would not be, they would not have happened. So this is where we are. We have also seen a situation in which the same election cycle, where opposition candidates won senatorial seats, won House of Rep seats, won governorship elections, they're not contesting that. They're saying that those elections were free and fair. In fact, when they won the presidential election in Lagos and in Katsina, Buhari's Katsina state, they said that those were free and fair. But all of a sudden, in all the other states where they lost, they say it was rigged. This is the symptom of what I'm talking about when I say that we have not developed to the point in our democratic culture where opposition candidates, losing presidential aspirants, can come out openly and acknowledge that the people of Nigeria simply did not choose them to be their next leader. And that's where we are.
What do you say to those who are saying that there appear to be an orchestrated move to massage some figures in specific areas during the election, and that the issues and the measures the Electoral Commission or INEC implemented to ensure transparency and credibility of the elections were severely undermined with the refusal, so to speak, to upload the polling results from each polling stations using the mechanism, the beavers, they said, to ensure transparency. How do you respond to such critics?
This was a major element of the misinformation campaign that certain agents of the opposition campaigns had conducted across the multimedia around the world. This notion that because the IREV portal, which was essentially, it's a viewing portal that allows Nigerians and observers to see the results coming in from the various polling units, it has not been well articulated that that portal is a viewing portal. It has nothing to do with the actual conduct of the election on the ground, in which people are using the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS, essentially, and by the way, an innovation brought in by our party, the All Progressives Congress, under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, where we scan the faces of each voter and take their fingerprint on on the BVAS system to ensure that we cut out all these ghost votes, over voting, and all of the other elements of corrupt electoral practice that has been cut out with the use of this technology. We brought this technology. Now, after the election is actually conducted on the ground, the results are signed off by the agents, the observing agents of the political parties. They have to agree that this is the result from this polling unit before it's now sent up to the various collation centers. The point here is that the argument that's being peddled in the international media, in some international media, is that because the IREF portal had a glitch, merely because we had an instantaneous and sudden and massive demand on one website. We saw this with Obamacare a few years ago. When the Obamacare website long-awaited website launch date came, the website was inaccessible to millions of Americans on the date of signing up. That was not because Barack Obama and the U.S. government at that time wanted to deny Americans health care. It was because there was a technological error, a glitch. We had the same thing happen. But what we are saying is that even with that glitch, it had no impact whatsoever on the actual conduct of the election. And I would liken it to somebody saying that because there was a problem with their television at home and they could not watch the Super Bowl, they're now saying because their TV didn't work, that the Super Bowl was not played in the stadium. We believe that that's a foolish argument.
Well, let me ask you about the dispute and some of the evidence the opposition parties, the PDP and the Labour Party, claim they have to challenge the outcome of the presidential election result particularly. They said all kinds of things, including that the cash crunch was part of the system to rig the election, and that INEC chairman, and some of the officials came up with figures that were totally different from what was read. How do you address these concerns?
Well, this is the beauty of our democracy and the beauty of our constitutional democratic setup in Nigeria, is that we have a very clear set of legal mechanisms by which the opposition candidates can go through the judicial process to make their case. We have seen several instances in our nation in which governors have lost their seats, senators have lost their seats, many high-ranking officials have lost their seats because of electoral malpractice, because of the legal and judicial processes that have been, put in place for dissatisfied, political combatants. So we are very much convinced that we have a system that is tried and tested. We have seen several high-ranking officials lose their offices as a result of these tribunals and court judgments. And we have no doubt that if there was any instance whatsoever of the All Progressives Congress or any other party abusing the electoral procedures and processes on election day, that ultimately any wrongly, elected candidate or falsely elected candidate will lose his office. We believe in the process, and we believe that the opposition must too.
Before we go, Ajuri, where do Nigerians go from here? Looking at how the elections went, the dispute before the court at the moment, where do Nigerians go from here? How do you create a system to ensure that they are satisfied with the outcome of elections in the future?
Well, we're certainly enthused by the fact that already we have seen all of the opposition candidates that are protesting the outcome of the election go to their respective courts to challenge the election. That is healthy. We embrace that as a ruling party. President Muhammadu Buhari embraces that. President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu embraces that. And we look forward to the conclusion of that process. But in the meantime, we recognize that the temperature in the country has gone up. And we also recognize that we have a responsibility as an incoming administration and as the governing party in the country, the All Progressives Congress, to bring the temperature down. And how we do that is by uniting all Nigerians, even those who supported the candidates who lost the election or the candidates who are contesting the election in court, that there is a need, an imminent need, to build our country across sectors. Build schools, build hospitals, make sure that we have world-class road and rail and port, seaport and airport infrastructure, make sure that the millions of young people in our country have access to jobs, make sure that we can establish a consumer credit system to allow tens of millions of Nigerians who cannot afford their own homes and cars to finally be able to do so on an installmental monthly payment basis. This is where we're going to galvanize national attention. And ultimately, we believe that the political process through the judicial processes that are going on will ultimately play themselves out. And Nigerians, being the law-abiding citizens that they are, will certainly respect the outcome of the courts.